Right, so I'd like to introduce Gemma Williams. She works with Karen, Louise and I at the Sunshine Clinic. Been a bit on and off all year, and has now moved to somewhere very lovely in the depths of Cornwall with a lovely piece of land that's soon to be developed into something very beautiful. And Gemma is an Alexander Technique teacher, shamanic healer, Orasoma, cards, many more things. So I'll let Gemma tell you all about herself. So I'm going to go on mute. Over to you, Gem.
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you for asking me, even though my anxiety is not loving it. The lovely thing that we're developing is actually a woodland. It's so exciting. It's my life's dream, and I'd much rather sit and talk to you about that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to talk to you about what I do for, a living. And I'm shuffling paper because I remembered that I was going to do it the other way around. So I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm, as Suzanne says, I teach the Alexander Technique. And, well, like most people, so I've been doing that for about 20 years. And before that, I was a healer. I started on this weirdness of path very young because, like most people, my work on the self has been out of necessity. Because our lives are painful physically and mentally often, and we need to learn how to navigate through them with as much skill as possible. And for me, it was talking therapies, Alexander Technique, yoga, learning about energy bodies, really important. That was my way through, and I use a lot of those skills in the work I do. Now my work mostly is about teaching people how to use their bodies well. And with that, I pull on spending years and years learning yoga. And I think, because I think I'm right, and everyone here is a therapist, so you all know what it's like. You find something, you're interested in it, and then it becomes your life. It's not just a job for us. And we don't just switch off at the end of the day. It's everything. Everything informs our work. Everything informs who we are. And that's really, so I'm a culmination of, my life is in my work and vice versa. So what I do is I teach, well, I call it embodied mindfulness, in that we have to have a slogan and it needs to be catchy. But it's with the Alexander Technique, because the Alexander Technique is embodied mindfulness. And we all know what mindfulness is. It's that lovely, presence of mind. It's being present. And embodied mindfulness is doing all of that, but you're in your body at the same time. You're here in your body. So no one's fully present 100% of the time. Even people like Eckhart Tolle and the Dalai Lama, they've learned a skill. They're skillful at being present with themselves in the moment, in their bodies, all that kind of stuff. But it's not, it wasn't their birthright. It wasn't given to them. It was something that was learned. And we all, in our different ways, are learning to be that, to be here and now. So the aim is to become more conscious so that we can make conscious choices. And that's not only in our thoughts, but that's in our body too. So right now, don't move. I want you to think about how you're sitting, just right now. What are you doing? How are you sitting? Be aware of it, just in this moment. And then I'm going to ask you, before I ask that question, did you have any sensory feedback coming up to your brain? Were you aware of your back on the chair or the sofa? Were you aware of your bum on the seat, or what your legs were doing? Was there any communication between your brain and your body? And now that you're thinking about it, and you're allowed to move now that you're thinking about it, what have you noticed? Did you notice that you were a bit crooked, a bit straight? Oh, were you a bit collapsed? Or were you a bit, pole stuck up your ass? Were your legs crossed? Were they uncrossed? Are you sitting on one leg? Classic move of us all. it's the awareness I'm interested in. I'm not interested in your posture. That isn't the key. The position that you're in isn't the problem, because it is a problem. What it is that I'm interested in is whether you're fully aware. Are you conscious what the rest of this is doing? Because I think we're all really getting better at being conscious of what's going on inside our heads, but we also need to be conscious about what the rest of us is doing, our vehicle. So are you aware of the tension, the tone, the collapse? So I'm a terrible presenter, but I'm a really good teacher. So we're going to do some Alexander technique, because we might as well, because it's just incredibly difficult to explain and it's much better to experience it. So we're going to pay some attention to our bodies, and you don't need to move, you don't have to, do anything, go anywhere. That was really amusing. One of you looks really still, and I've realized it's a photograph. Okay. So the first thing I want you to bring your awareness to is your pelvis, your sit bones, your bum bones. It's what you're sat on. Or if you're very laid back, you'll be sat on your sacrum. So it's the pelvis. We all know what that looks like. It's a big bowl. We've got the big wings. Just take your mind there right now. Just go there into it. Big bony pelvis with a back and sides and a front. And then at the bottom of your pelvis, you've got two sitting bones. And if you're on a firm surface of any kind, those sit bones are your guide to where down is. So that's really useful. And what I'd like you to do is just let go in your belly. Just stop holding it in. It's really not useful. Just let it all soften through the pelvis, through the tops of your legs, down through the rest of your legs and into your feet. Just ask for some undoing. Let go of the tension. It's the end of the day. And then we're going to bring your awareness up to the top of your spine. And the top of your spine doesn't just sort of stop at your chin where we sort of think, oh, yeah, that's it. It goes right up into your head. And if you've got really tight neck muscles, or you tighten your jaw, or if you've got really tight ankles, you'll be pulling your head down on top of your spine. So let's just not do that. And let's just say, okay, can I ask, can I let go of some tension in the neck? And that might be in your jaw. So the first thing we're going to do in the jaw is let your tongue be soft, just in your mouth. Soften your tongue. And as your tongue softens, be aware that the jaw might be just inclined now to release down and forwards. And your tongue can sit anywhere you like in the mouth, because too many people say too many different things about that. And the reality is that we've got really different shaped mouths and different shaped tongues. And the point is, don't just sort of clamp it with tension to the roof of your mouth. Let it be soft wherever it rests in your mouth. And then I'd like you to be aware of your head. So this is the classic average head position. It is pulled back and down onto a spine that's often a little bit like this. Obviously this is extreme, but I'm just giving you an example so you can recognize it. So taking your attention back up, where is your head able to just be a little bit loose and pivoty on the top of your spine? Or is it all kind of clamped down? Just have an awareness for that. So you can sit however you like now. I just wanted you to be aware of your body for a moment. So Alexander technique, embodied mindfulness, it's about awareness, consciousness, and presence. So we work on the premise that how we use our body affects how it functions. So what I mean by that, if I spend my day with my shoulders up by my ears, or my arms pulled into my back, or loads of tension through my legs, or just really collapse through my whole structure, that is going to have an effect on not only how easy it is to move my body, but also all that internal stuff, lungs, other important things. So if we've got these patterns of tension, which are habitual and they're subconscious, so we're not aware often, almost always, of these negative habits that we have within us. It's very unusual that, you know, we'll stand in front of the mirror and know that we've got one shoulder a little bit higher than the other, or one hip that's a bit more turned in than the other. So these are unconscious. So every time we come back to ourselves, we're saying, I need to be aware in this moment of my body as I'm doing this activity. And as I say, it's a skill, it's learned. When we are children, we've got lovely, what we could call good use. We use ourselves really well. You see them, they bend beautifully. They have all this lovely flow, and their connective tissue is still all springy and they're well supported. You know, they can sit on the floor for ages. Not that they do, because they fidget. We have it, but we're not conscious of it. And that's the difference. So as we get older, as life comes and beats us up, we pick up all of these little extra habits and tensions. But if we can roll back the clock a little bit and say, well, hang on a second, at one stage, my body was very well, you know, it worked really well. I could go into a squat, I could pick things up off the floor. It didn't ache, it didn't groan, it didn't grumble. Because just because we get older doesn't mean we have to suffer with all of this stuff. Actually, if we learn how to use the body a little bit better, if we're a bit kinder to it, a little bit more with it, a bit more present with it, it's amazing how that all unfolds and improves. So the Alexander technique, this learning, it's a re-education, it's not a therapy. But I'm always in with the therapists because it has a therapeutic benefit. And you can imagine, can't you, if you take away all that tension, if you give the body lots of support, it's going to feel good. It's, you know, it comes in under that therapy. But we are teaching and we're learning a skill. It's an organizing principle to support your body and to create quiet in your mind, because we're talking about the self with a big S, you know, which I think in all that you all do, you also talk about that self. It's not the little self. So in the same way that you can, for an example with this awareness, in the same way that once you identify something like a codependent relationship, once you've woken up to it, you can never unsee that. You can never close your mind off to that. And it's the same with the Alexander technique. It's the same when we start to awaken this awareness within ourselves, this consciousness within our body. Once that shift starts to happen, we can't undo that. You don't suddenly not be any good at it. You know, it's this ever developing lovely skill, which means you can listen and hear what your body's saying to you. You can hear the whispers of your body, ideally before they become the screams of your body. So let's go back now. So right now, again, don't move. Don't move yet. Tell me in your own mind, how are you doing? How's your awareness? Had you lost your legs again? Were they anywhere near your consciousness as you were talking to me? Were you aware of that bum on the seat? Very difficult if you're on a soft, squidgy sofa, which I think a lot of you are. But just bring yourself back into your body. Find your pelvis again. Be aware, what am I actually unconsciously gripping? Have I pulled my stomach in again? Have I clenched my shoulders? Which bits of you feel supported? Which bits of you feel collapsed? Which bits of you feel good and which don't? So then we're just going to, we're going to get your brain, we're going to ask your brain to get your muscles to make some changes. So I'm going to fire you with instructions again about your body. So we're going to start at the base of the skull, or we might say the top of the spine, and just bringing your awareness there to that base of the skull. And we're going to ask that area to widen, and you're going to think it, because this is actually a thinking technique. We're in the body, but we're using the mind. So as you're sat there, not thinking, thinking, oh my God, what's she going on about? Just think it. I'd like my base of the skull to let go and to widen. I would like the muscles behind my ears just to let go a bit, just to ease off a bit, so that that jaw can relax and the tongue can rest softly in my mouth. And that in turn will allow your head to have a little bit better balance on the top of your spine. And how is that head? Can you imagine that you're in your mind's eye? Can you see yourself nodding in a yes? Just, you don't need to do it, you can just think it. As your head imagines, as you imagine that your head's nodding yes, a really interesting thing happens, and the muscles at the back of the neck tend to let go to allow the better poise and balance of your head on your spine. And then perhaps be aware of the support through your spine. Notice where it is. Be aware that from the belly down, you could think of a lengthen through your spine, out through your tailbone. Be aware of that pelvis again. In your mind's eye, find your sitting bones. They're the bum bones that you kind of rock on if you're on a hard chair. If you're on a soft chair, just be aware of the softness of that around your pelvis. And think about the front of the pelvis, which we rarely think about, unless it's, period pains or any sort of digestive issue. But be aware of the depth of your pelvis, because I would put good money on the fact that most of you claim themselves with tension to sort of hold yourself together. Women spend a lot of their time holding things together. Life generally, but it does show up in the pelvis quite badly. Just let it soften, be aware of the depth of it. And then come back to that idea of your legs. There they are, somewhere underneath you. Notice the backs of your thighs and ask them to widen. Think of the lower half of you kind of taking your own space. You don't take up a lot of space, and it is really your right to have some of that space. And the lower half of your legs, you can just let them go, draining down through your feet. Even if your feet are up on the sofa, it doesn't matter, just let everything drain down through the lower legs. And now as you're sitting, you're a little bit more conscious of your body. And we could say that you've sort of brought yourself a bit more fully into the present moment. And what did you notice? How did it feel? And was anyone aware of any of this before we started? So I'm going to actually, I don't know if this is like what normally happens, but I'm going to ask Suzanne to unmute you. And if I'm going to ask you what your bodies are doing. Is that okay?
Yeah, do you want me to unmute everybody?
Well, I don't know, they can wave maybe and say,
have a turn?
I don't want people to feel that they have to say anything.
I'll go first if you like, and then someone else can
go on then.
Let their hand up when I take them up. Yeah, so I wasn't aware of the tension in my head at all, or that I had my tongue clamped up in the top of my mouth, like you said. And when I thought into the base of my skull, and I've done Alexander technique with you, but clearly I've forgotten, there was a sensation of that kind of widening and my jaw coming forward. It's really strange, isn't it, how you can put your mind into really tiny, subtle movement and a relaxation that comes with that. So that felt really good.
Thank you. That's lovely. That was the ideal feedback, just to give you all a clue.
Who wants to go next? Otherwise, I'll pick on someone. Okay, Kay. Oh, you might have to unmute yourself, Kay.
Oh, do that. Can you unmute yourself, Kay?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So similar to Suzanne, I hadn't realized the back of my neck was doing what it was, which was probably quite tight. What I did become more aware of, I've been aware of it most afternoon. I've sat most afternoon in this seat, and it's a little secretary chair, cheap and cheerful, with a padded seat that is actually not really very padded. So my sitting bones and they're all a bit sore. So I'm kind of not being aware of them, because if I were to be aware of them, I'd probably want to stand up and give them a good rub. And I haven't been able to do that. So, but So I'm not quite sure. What should I do under those circumstances?
This is a really good question. So the stock answer would be, don't sit for so bloody long in your chair.
Well, yeah, there is that.
But I know in life that isn't always practical at all. You know, sometimes we really have just got to stay and finish this thing. And so what I would suggest is you do things like, if you can, change your chair periodically. You know, find a stool, sit on something different.
Yeah.
What's really a nice thing to do is you get hold of a cushion or a rolled up. Oh look, this is great doing a talk from your own workroom, isn't it? A rolled up something, and you stick it right under the back of you. So only my butt cheeks are on that bit of rolled up towel.
Yeah.
So my sit bones are still kind of in front of it and they're hanging off. And what that's done is it's created a little bit more length through my thigh. It's organized the pelvis for me. So then I don't have to engage too much just to keep myself upright.
Yeah.
That's familiar to you, isn't it? I think, you know, so much of this stuff we know, we just need to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, can't keep everything in your brain.
Thank you. That's a good reminder. I'll do that.
Okay, thanks, Kay. I like the question. Would anyone else like to ask or tell me anything? Karen. Oh.
Hi, Gemma.
Hiya.
I just noticed a similar thing that I get when I meditate. So my head rocks, and that's what it was doing at the end of that. It's just like a natural rock. It's quite pleasant. I don't know why it does that, but I get that when I meditate as well. So,
where does it rock from, Karen? Is it rocking from down here or is it further up?
I think it is from up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sort of, I don't know if it's trying to settle differently or something, but I always notice it with meditation as well. It's always quite nice, and it doesn't feel tense at all.
No, I think it's exactly as you say. It is trying to resettle itself. So when we stop interfering with the natural postural mechanisms in the body, when we take away some of that daily excessive tension, what the body does, because it's incredibly clever and it has all sorts of mechanisms that hold us upright, keep us upright, as that tension goes, it does start to try and work it out. It's sort of saying, well, how do I want that head to be balanced on top of the spine? And it quite literally is a skull on a couple of, and it is like a rocking thing that goes on here, the same as your sit bones. They're kind of shaped like these little rockers. And so sometimes the other thing people find when they're in that meditative, peaceful place is that happens too. There's this kind of little bit of a wave that moves through the body, and it's like a rocking motion. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was really, really nice.
Would anyone else like to add anything or ask anything right now? Did anyone not feel anything at all? Did anyone not feel any difference or connection? That's good. Everyone's definitely alive then.
Done a good job, Gemma. That's why.
Oh, that's it. Yes, because you're good of everything.
So, not to butt in, but I know that Pam has just, well, I am butting in, clearly. Pam actually recently came to one of your classes. So what would we typically expect for one of your classes?
So what Pam came to was my Saturday morning yoga-ish class. And I call it yoga-ish because if you're a hardcore yogi, it probably isn't for you. I think in the whole hour and a quarter, we maybe did 2 yoga moves, but we did them very slowly and with a lot of attention. So that class is designed, so generally there's quite a few yoga teachers that come to the class. And what we're doing is we're looking at the some of the yoga postures with the detail of this incredible presence of being. So rather than, you know, and I know yoga is all about the journey. We all know that yoga is about the journey. But if you roll it back even further, the journey is your you know, even before you start to think about what you're going into. I can't even think what we were doing this week, but anyway. Oh, it was a lunge, yeah. So before you even think about what you're going into, you're giving your body a heads up. You're organizing everything from that release on the top of the spine to the length and width of your back, to making sure your legs aren't gripping, so that when you do use your legs, they fold well, all of this. So it looks from the outside like a normal yoga class. We all lie on a mat and we spend a lot of time in semi-supine, which is where you're on your back with your knees bent, with your feet on the floor. Alexander teachers are big on having blocks under the head just to support that upper curve of the spine, so that you're not, you know, if you lie down without something under your head, chances are it's kind of going to do something like that, and that's a bit uncomfortable. So we start that, and then we start to take our journey really into the body, and we start to wake up bits of us with this attention, exactly as you've just been experiencing here. And when you first learn this stuff, when you start paying attention in that very deep way to your body, you're thinking, so you're sending your thoughts, which we were all doing, we were sending our thoughts to here, here and here. And there is actually a reciprocal run that comes back up from your musculature and into your brain. But actually that's the piece of, that's the runway that often isn't in place. And so the practice is keeping the idea of that going. So we keep thinking about the neck being free or the jaw releasing, keep thinking about that pelvis. And what then starts to happen is our neurological pathways start to increase, and we get more sensory awareness of the whole body. So that arm that's just resting in your lap right now, you still have a part of your brain that is just noticing it all the time. So if you can imagine when you're in a yoga class and you're doing, you know, there's some pretty weird positions, there's a real usefulness to knowing the distance between your head and your feet, and where your back is, and which bit of you is doing this or that. But equally, you know, if you're just digging a hole in the garden, it's useful to know where you are in space, and to have that balance and coordination to be able to do things in life that, you know, don't not only throw you off balance, but can leave you at the end of the day feeling exhausted and tired. And I'm going to use Kay as an example. That will serve you for asking good questions, Kay. The first thing I said to her was, you know, don't sit in the chair too long. And that little voice that would have been somewhere in your thumb bones, that, you know, the first little voice that you heard, that little voice was in all of us when we were children. And when your mum or your grandmother or whoever it was said, oh, for God's sake, stop fidgeting, what they were doing was giving you the first message, and that first message was stop listening to your body. It's annoying me, stop listening to your body. And so what the classes are about and what the work is about is starting that conversation again, but with an intelligent adult mind. So, you know, it's a bit more conscious.
I do find that even when people come to me for sessions, that they're not present in their body at all, so they can work out their issues and their problems intellectually and emotionally, but they're not finding where that tension and emotion is kind of sat in their body. So having an embodied mindfulness is something, obviously, that sometimes I know when I've been to you, it will shift an emotion. So that's useful for that reason as well, isn't it?
Yeah. When I work with if I do one-to-one, so people come to me and they want to learn the Alexander technique as a thing, and that will take one-to-one lessons, or you can come to the classes and you're learning this skill. Other people will come to me and they've got some stuff to deal with, and it's a much more, let's get in there and dig around, and you put it way definitely under that healing umbrella, and we, you know, pull on a few of the weirder things that I do, and, you know, some sounds, some visualization, some colors, some stuff like that. And in that exercise, I don't know, at that session, what I do is I always bring people back to their bodies, and constantly they're amazed at this little pocket of something that we'll connect to, and that little pocket of something has got, you know, some experience from, you know, when they were 5, or suddenly I feel like I'm 5 and I'm back here, and it's just, I'm constantly astounded at how the body has held everything. It's all there. And part of my skill over the years has been to be able to kind of plug in to what's going on in people's bodies and bring that out. And for an example, one of the first things, the first times I really noticed that this was happening was with my grandmother, who started coming for her lessons at 84, never too late. And she did her Alexander lessons weekly for 10 years till she died. Anyway, it happened a few weeks in a row. Every time I started working on her, so it was hands-on work because I could touch people back then. So every time I started working on her pelvic area and her lower abdomen, her belly, she started talking about the birth of her twins and the gallstones that once she had removed, and it was really interesting. And I realized that she was completely unconscious of this relationship between me touching her body and her bringing up just conversationally all this stuff about her past. And that was years and years ago, and it was one of the first times where I suddenly became conscious of the pockets of life that's within our body. And to understand why, you know, on a day-to-day basis, if you've had a day and it's been a shit day and you've spent all your day on the phone arguing or doing whatever you've had to be doing, all of that energy is just, you know, it's in there, isn't it? It's that jaw that's really tight, it's that tongue that's stuck to the roof of the mouth, it's all of that, it's that neck tension, we know it's all there. And so to have a skill to be able to recognize it, because you can hear it as it's coming to you, rather than the accumulated backlog, which tends to be our lower back pain in our 40s, or, you know, our neck pain in our 50s or whatever. We're clearing it as we can clear it as we go. Then it just makes life easier. It just makes everything easier. You know, also you can come away from people and just think, wow, my body really didn't like them. Because you're connected to it, you know, it's giving you messages, it's telling you a story. I think I went off on one and digressed.
Yeah, that's all right. That was a really good answer, because I really enjoy our sessions, and Gemma will sometimes pull some cards and she might do some healing, and then we do some Alexander techniques. It kind of ends up as a kind of mixed bag of what I need on that day, so that's always great. So I need to book one. In fact, Louise had a question, Gemma.
Okay.
Do you want to come off mute, or do you want me to ask it, Lou?
Oh,
I can ask it.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello, lovely.
How are you?
I'm all right.
I was asking an odd question, because when you were talking about the sort of the back of the head where you put a block when you're doing your yoga-ish,
Yeah.
at night time, do you think pillows are good, bad, a one pillow to support 2 pillows? What's the deal with that from your position, from your?
Yeah, from my thing, I think sleeping is challenging because the whole thing about this is that to be consciously aware. And so as soon as your eyes are shut and you're in dreamland, you're not consciously aware. So the best thing, my best solution for having a good night's sleep and not screwing up your body in the night, is actually to do something really proactive before you go to bed, like some Alexander technique or some really gentle yoga-y, easing the body out kind of stuff. So you're quietening the musculature down, you're really quietening down through the connective tissue, and of course your mind as well. So then you get into bed and you're starting it well, even if, you know, you'll tie yourself in knots by the morning, you're starting it well. And as for pillows, that's really dependent on that, the curvature of your neck and your lower spine. So if you sleep on your back and you're very flat backed, then you might not even need a pillow. You know, you might want something really slim. But you know, if you're a rugby player and your shoulders are, you know, kind of like this, then when you lie down, your head is going to fly back here, and so you're going to need some sort of support under that. Equally, if you lie on your side, and even if you're just sort of, you know, normal sized like me, you're going to need a decent pillow, because you got to fill that gap. You know, that if the bed is here, that gap must be filled, otherwise your head is going to do that and you're going to get terrible neck strain all through the night. So my advice is experimentation. But I also have just a personal theory, which I'm sure is bonkers, but it's it was from when I went and lived in Spain for a bit, and they have this lovely siesta, and it really suited me. I had this theory that actually we're not that far from our primate cousins, and they don't sleep for 8 hours, you know, at all. They do not do that. And we have this ambition that we have to sleep, you know, for 8 hours a night or 7 or whatever it is. And I think probably we do better with about 6, and then maybe another couple later on in the day. There's something about the body that after about 6 hours, it starts to get a little bit stiffer and a little bit tighter. Whereas a shorter, and don't get me wrong, I do not do this. I do not practice what I'm preaching. I love my bed. But I think in a perfect world, we would have a lifestyle where we could sleep in shorter periods of time. And maybe evolutionary, we just haven't caught up yet with our lifestyle, I think, actually, in a lot of ways. Does that help, Lou?
Thank you, my lovely. That's perfect.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any other totally random questions? No, we're good. Okay. So guess what?
Oh, hang on, there's a question. Did you want to come off mute, Vina, or do you want me to ask it?
I'm not really sure what these types of beds are called, but I know that they're sort of fashionable. You know, where you've got a hospital bed and they're like massage beds, and then the feet goes up and the back goes up. But just going on from Lou's question about pillows, I mean, how good are they for your back support, or, you know?
Yeah, I think you would need, if you had some sort of condition where that bed was useful, then that would probably outweigh any of the not awesome things about it. Normally, the beds that do the moving is to help people get in and out of bed, and I don't really know about the other sort of aspects of them. I know I used to work with a woman also in her 80s, wonderful woman, and I used to go to her house, and she got one of these moving everything kind of beds, and it did go out to just a normal flat bed, and that's what she did at night. It was just a bed, and she needed the thing so she could get up for a pee in the night and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, because that was my question. I mean, I was almost thinking that if you had all of that, you'd almost stop using your muscles to get out of bed, or it's yeah.
I do have I totally get what you're saying there. There's a balance, I think, between people needing to function and get on with life, you know, and those chairs that kind of tip you forward and all of that kind of thing. Yeah. And I think, you know, I think they have a really good place, and I think they're excellent. And in fact, this same lady, she had one of the chairs that did that, and we used it, but we were using it with her learning. I was basically teaching her how to walk again and how to stand again and all of these things. And I like them in that context. I like them if you're going to use them well. But if you're not, if you've got no consciousness, I think you're right. I think over time, the body's just going to kind of do less and less, isn't it?
Yeah, that really helps, because I've been, you know, encouraged to buy one, like a fashionable thing, and I'm thinking, why do I want to spend all that money if I don't need it? You know, I'd rather try and keep my muscles strong.
Absolutely. I would always say invest in yourself rather than your equipment. And so when people come to me for lessons, say for example they've been referred by their work or something like that, you know, they've got RSI or they've got some sort of back problem, and they're saying, oh, and work's going to buy me this office chair. And, you know, we look at the office chair and it is all singing, all dancing, and it can do everything and it's fantastic. But the pain is still there because essentially their own musculature isn't doing what it needs to do. They've got their habitual patterns of tension getting in the way of all of that lovely postural reflexes. The reality is that you can just be sat on anything well, you know, and if you've invested in your own body, then you get to take that everywhere, don't you? Whereas you can't take your bed everywhere if you go on holiday or if you're going, you know. So yeah, that would be my...
That absolutely makes sense, but the way you've put it, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Gemma, just a question before I forget, I meant to ask earlier. Do you have many people that you work with vertigo?
Oh, I have done. Yes, vertigo is a shocker. Yes, I've had, I think in my career, only about 3 or 4 people that have had vertigo. One person had something, she had vertigo along with a vestibular disorder, and it was very bad. It was really chronic. And eventually we got her really back on track. It was still in part, but, you know, she wasn't vomiting and falling over constantly. So that was, you know, we got past that. So I've had people with different degrees of it.
Okay, so you can work with it. That's good to know.
Okay. Yes. Was there any more point to that? Did you have a...
Well, there's somebody here that I know will probably be a bit shy of asking the question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so one of the things... well, vertigo is a bit odd, actually. It can be all sorts of things, but when it's generally just the vestibular disorder, so it's kind of, and it's all kind of up here. And what we find in this work is that as that release happens, as that shift happens around the top of the spine, and that general coordination comes back through the structure, what we then find is that the symptoms start to lessen. The other thing that the Alexander technique, or, you know, just being basically present in yourself and well coordinated around yourself, means that you have got this, you're more connected to everything that you are. So for example, if we just go back to ourselves, your own body in this room, well, in your room anyway. So here you are with your bum on the chair. And you know where that chair is because you've just consciously thought, oh yeah, that's my bum on the chair. And then you're going to think to yourself, oh, there's my back. Yes, I can feel my back. And it's maybe on something, or it's, you know, waving in the distance. I don't know, but your back is there. So this kind of peculiar thinking that we're doing is keeping your balance and poise. You know where you are in space. So there's your bum on the chair again. Remember where it is, and you've got your feet on the ground. So as your feet are on the ground and your bum's on the chair, just know, don't look up, just know that the ceiling is now above your head. And so what you're doing in all of that is you're giving yourself your spatial awareness. You increase your spatial awareness. And now I'd like you to stop looking at the screen and just look ahead into your space, wherever you're sat, just looking out there. And if you can, take on board your peripheral vision. So that's the bits right at the edges of your vision, really wide. And as you take in your peripheral vision and expand your vision more into your space, that actually helps your back widen, and you have a more support, you have an increased support through your structure. So there's all sorts of peculiar things that go on when we put ourselves in context in space, our space, not the space, you know. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. Okay. I think that would be really helpful. Are you working in clinic at the moment?
I'm hoping to come back on the 7th and the 8th.
Okay, because I'm allowed to work at the minute, so you might find that you're allowed.
I'm so jealous. No, I've had some very strict emails from my governing body, who are also my insurers.
Okay.
We're not, no touchy, no. Which I really miss. I don't know how many of you all work, you know, in physical contact, body workers or touch or healers. But it was a few months in when suddenly my hands were like, are we ever doing this again? What are we, you know, there was this sort of lack of, oh, hold on, you know, I need to touch things. This is what I do. It was really odd. So yeah, I've really missed it. But what I have enjoyed is learning to work like this, because then you have to work in a different way.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that too, actually. It's been good.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting.
So you have more wisdom to share with us.
Say that again?
You have some more wisdom to share with us.
I do. if nobody's, given up from boredom, I do.
Very good.
Because what I thought might be interesting was the fact that we are all screen oriented these days quite severely. And it's very useful to have a few skills to deal with that. So all of my clients that I had to suddenly take online, the first lesson was, how are we going to interact with each other via a screen without ending up sort of a little bit like this?
Like me.
And then by the end of the day, I'd be a little bit like this, So there's all sorts of things that I'm sure everyone knows, things about, getting your screen the right height and, all that kind of jazz. But there's a couple of things that I think are really useful. So as you're sitting here in whatever space and whatever capacity you're looking at that screen, again, one more time, stop looking at the screen and look beyond it. Look out into the distance, whatever that is. For me, actually, it's just a wall, but I'm still looking out further than the screen. And be aware of that peripheral vision again, as widely as you can see with your eyes. You're just gently looking out to the sides. As you're doing that, take a breath in and notice that your ribs can move. So you're looking out into your spacious space, having a breath in, letting the breath out. Know where your back is. Know where the bum is, sat on that chair. And then come back and just glance down at your screen. So there it is. I'm just going to put my cardigan on. I think the heating's gone off. You're looking back at the screen. Where are you looking from? Are you peering at the screen because everyone is tiny? You are all tiny. Or can you say to yourself, I'm just going to let my eyes rest back here in my head. So in the same way as you knew where your bum was on the chair, I want you to know that your eyes are back in your head. I want you to now just close your eyes temporarily, just for a moment. And with your closed eyes, ask for a little bit of softening around the eye sockets, into your temples, down through your jaw, your tongue. And in a moment, when you then open your eyes, I'd like you to imagine that you're looking out from deeper within your skull. So you're back in your head. And now as you're looking at your screen from back in your head, just notice how that feels. And now notice as well your lower back. So you're looking out of your screen, but you're noticing your lower back. You're noticing the back of your body. And take a breath out, just let it go. And then let your shoulders rest on your lower back. Just let them drop. So you're bringing yourself back into yourself, because the screen, and this goes for windscreen as well when you're driving, the screen wants to pull you forwards and in. But if you can spend once or twice, 3 times a day, just doing it exactly as we did, a couple of minutes, releasing something in the back of you, getting yourself back into the back of you, softening your eyes, softening your jaw. You're giving yourself distance from the screen. You don't see any less, you still see the same amount of visual stuff, but what you're not doing is tightening in response to, some sort of desperation, I will get my point across, or something like that. So that's, those are my top tips, eyes and lower back, so that we don't end up by the end of the day with our eyes out on stalks and our lower backs pulled in and our necks coming forwards, and then have to spend half an hour on the floor undoing it all. It's better to use yourself well, and then you've got less fallout. So
that was really great. The eye thing was just amazing, how I could feel my eyes were at the back of my head. It's so weird. What a weird feeling. I'd never thought to do that before.
Yeah, no, why would you, for God's sake? I mean, what a ridiculous thing to do. Let's all just get into our heads and look out. It's like we're all on drugs, for God's sake. So when you understand, so you don't have to know loads about anatomy, but if you understand that actually when you're seeing from the back of your head.
Oh, yeah.
Because your eyes are just, you know, they do all sorts of clever things, but you're seeing from the back of your head. And also, I think I'm right in saying that you see out of your left eye from the back of the right side of your head. Because I think, yes, Kay, you're nodding. I was looking to, because I thought you'll know this. So I have, so my lifelong journey, it's a journey, isn't it? Not an annoyance. My lifelong journey has been releasing the base of my left skull. At 48, I've now started to realize that I've got the right eye is the one that's getting weaker. So for my whole life, there's obviously been a little bit of progression of tension, even with all of these wonderful things that I do. And I haven't got the glasses yet, but I'm sure they're coming. So I think it's really fascinating that the external stuff, the stuff we notice, the muscular tension, the jaw tension, all of that, it's having an effect deep, deep, deep within the body. Actually, I could be really topical, because at the beginning of the year I unfortunately got COVID, not hospitalized, but it was at times very bad. And I pride myself on being able to breathe well. The Alexander technique creates this amazing lung capacity, and you have an amazing facility for just breath. That's why it's very popular with actors and singers, wind instrument, you know, all sorts of people like that. And there I was, the expert in breathing, lying on my cushions face down, spending hours and hours just releasing as much tension as I could through my back, asking for my back to widen, freeing my neck, undoing my legs, in the hope that I could just get a little bit more air into my lungs. And I honestly think, and I know this is going to sound horribly dramatic, but I honestly think if I hadn't had years and years experience doing what I do for a living, then I would have had to have gone into hospital. I would have needed oxygen. Actually, to be fair, my sister-in-law said, I bet you did need oxygen, you were just too stupid to phone. But I think that it was actually a real gift that I had the capacity to be able to sort of, you know, bumble my way through it, because of understanding that actually what's going on the outside of our body is having a really fundamental effect on what's going on the inside.
Wow.
Yeah, eyes, lungs, heart. You know, your connective tissue from your tongue goes all the way down and connects into your heart. You know, when people say, speak from the heart, sing from the heart. So it's a nice reminder that we are multi-layered, and all those layers are connected. Anyway, that was a real digression, sorry.
That was great, Gemma. Does anyone else have any questions?
Oh, Karen.
Oh, Karen.
Oh, no, you're still muted.
There you go. So
Okay.
I couldn't find my mouse. That's the problem with a laptop, isn't it? And that was, when you did that eye thing, that was really interesting, because it actually changed the whole of my lower spine. I don't know if it's meant to do that, but yes. I felt completely different. And I had a slip disc a few months back now, lower. And yeah, it just felt really different. Almost the energy was, I could feel the energy more buzzy down there. So I don't know if that's the intention of it, but that's what it did.
Well, it wasn't the intention, but because everything's connected, yeah, these things happen. And that buzzy feeling, that's really common. Warmth, sort of a fizzing of energy, a liveliness that kind of comes back to the body. It's almost as if when we pay attention, we're taking the handbrake off so that everything can kind of flow again.
Yeah. Well, my daughter said I've not stopped nodding. She said I look like the Churchill dog. Stop nodding. I don't know I'm doing it. It's just happening.
Yeah. There's a really interesting correspondence between the top of your spine and the bottom of your spine.
Oh.
So as that is undoing up here, it'll also be undoing right at the base as well. So yeah.
That's really good. So would you suggest then, like when you have people who come and you obviously teach them to do this, do you suggest that they do, like, I don't know, a 10-minute in the morning and a 10-minute in the evening, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so there's a really nice self-care exercise, and it's called Constructive Rest. And it's when so we get people to lie on the floor, and it needs to be a firm surface, not a bed. Therapy couch is fine, that kind of firmness, or floor. And you have your knees bent and your feet on the floor, and your head on a bit of a support block, or even a cushion if the block's too hard. And you're lying there in this anatomical position, semi-supine, hands on belly. You'll see it in Alexander books. And the purpose of it is to give you a chance to switch off and just release and relax, because you're not having to support the weight of your own body, but it's to practice this way of thinking, this very particular and precise way. We call it directing, but it's just jargon. It's the way you're thinking and coordinating your musculature in your body. And so it gives you an opportunity to learn how to do that in a quiet space away from life, so that then when you're thrown into doing something, for example, giving a talk that you're really nervous about, you manage to stay in your back and stay fairly centered and, not lose everything, all your shit and all that. Yeah. So yeah, it's called semi-supine. And I would say if you went onto YouTube or the internet, you'll be either under constructive rest or semi-supine, and it is a lovely self-care. But as for all the other stuff, that's the interesting thing, that it slowly just comes and filters into your life. And I get people say things like, I was walking along and I suddenly realized just how up I was. I suddenly realized how much internal support I had through my body. Or, I suddenly realized that my neck was free. Or, it's that same. It's exactly the same, that realization like people have where they say, I was in this really heated argument and suddenly I could see it all unfolding in front of me. It's those same kind of realizations that people have about their own use.
Yeah. No, I think it's really powerful, actually. And I think it is, it seems to me, I know with like EFT, you have to make it a habit, because if you don't, then you're not going to pull it out of the bag when you need it. So, with Alexander technique, it seems to me it's something you've got to make a habit to really get the best from.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. It's a life skill. It's a real life skill. And you apply it to everything, just the same as any of those. Yeah, anything. Yeah, absolutely. EFT or just, consciousness, mindful consciousness, all of that. This sort of, it's a tool, isn't it, for crazy bit of a world that we're in at the moment.
We need loads.
We need all the tools.
We need the tool belt.
Utility belt, I like to call it, being a superhero fan.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Gemma.
Okay, my absolute pleasure. No, thank you. Thanks for the feedback. So I thought I might tell you about other things. Is that a good time? Is this a good time, Suzanne?
Yeah, go for it. If anyone needs to pop off, that's fine. I know a few people have had to leave, but that's fine.
So I do a class on a Wednesday, a weekly class. We're in blocks. They're month blocks. So every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and 7:30, and it's for an hour, and it's basically the Alexander technique. And I use different things to, chairs, standing, stuff like that. And it's a very small group. It is between 6 and 8 people. And at the moment, actually, Wednesday morning's full, so I don't know why I'm telling you that, but at 7:30 on a Wednesday, I have space. And the next block starts on the 2nd of December. The yoga-ish classes, as I like to call them, they're once a month, and the next one is on the 19th of December. And I think I really told you, that I do one-to-one stuff too. That's the bit about promoting, because,
Can you Can you put that in the WhatsApp group so that people have got your contact details and the dates of your...
Yeah, I can do exactly that.
Okay, and then that can...
I could even put in my website address too, wouldn't that be professional?
Yes, that would be really, really beneficial to us and you. Kay's got a question. Do you want to just take yourself off mute, Kay?
So it's not so much of a question, more an observation. And Gemma, I think for somebody who is a self-proclaimed angst speaker, I think it was fantastic. So thank you, because you set me a great example.
That's really kind of you, and yeah, thank you so much. I have to say, it's my biggest fear. So, and all I've done is all the things I tell the actors, which is about organising yourself well with your stage fright. You have been witnessing the Alexander technique in practice. Thank you, Kay, that's lovely of you.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known, Gemma, at all.
No, but I'm terribly honest, and I do tend to just blur.
Well, that's fine though, isn't it? And that's what's nice about this group, is it's a really nice, friendly group.
Yes, it's lovely. It is a really nice group.
The nice energy in the group. So we're all really supportive of each other, which is nice.
Yes. So thank you. So I have nothing else to add now, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you ever so much for coming along to do a talk. Does anyone else have anything else they want to say just before I do the wrap up? No? A big thank you, Gemma. I've learnt a lot. I'm looking forward to you coming back to work. I want a session, so me first. Do you do one-to-ones on Zoom?
I do, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So that would be good for people that can't get or not able because they're shielding.
Yes.
So that's good. So I'm looking forward to that. So brilliant. It'd be nice to have you back in the space, won't it, Lou? Yes. So that's it for Gemma. We are going to meet now every 2 weeks. We've got some great speakers lined up. Next we've got Cherry, who's here. Cherry, do you want to pop off mute for a minute and just say a little bit about what you might want to talk about with us all in a couple of weeks?
Okay, well,
sorry.
Good. Sorry, finish. And then
I was just saying I've put you on the spot and now I'm interrupting.
That's okay. I'm a healer, hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, exorcist. I clear haunted houses around the world. So I'm going to speak a bit about how I got into it all, what I do, how it works, which includes a lot of soul rescue. So yes, I'll enlarge upon it all.
That's amazing. I mean, I've had issues. I think I've probably been coming to you maybe for a few years. I think when I very first started, maybe at least a couple. It's gone by really quick. It's probably 3. Where I've had issues where things have needed to be cleared, and it's been spot on. And I've been like, thank you so much for people like Cherry in the world. So, you know, the world of light and dark and spirit and everything else it's very real. It's always good to know how to stay in the light and to have the people there that are support and backup when you're in a position. Even with one of my own clients, I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. Okay, let's send you to Cherry. So, I mean, I work in conjunction with lots of other therapists, lots of, you know, so you hear I've sent people to and vice versa. So it's very much we all work as a kind of family of therapists, whereas if I'm not the right person, then I know somebody else that I'd be happy to recommend, you know, swapped and shared with lots of you guys. So it would be great to have you on. That's the 9th, I think, of December, whatever 2 weeks today is.
Yeah, I don't know without looking, but
yeah, I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks today. That's fine.
And then after that, I believe we've got Christine. Karen, do you want to, or Christine, do you want to say? We haven't got a date in for that.
No, we haven't got a date yet, Christine, have we? But we've
No, you just
we've asked you to come out.
So when would we want that before Christmas, do you?
Yeah. Are you happy with doing one just before Christmas?
What date would that be,
It's
Suzanne?
usually on Monday, so
That'd be the 21st, is it? Is it 21st, Monday?
Oh, right, solstice.
if
Okay.
that's too soon to Christmas, we can wait until after.
No, I think that's fine. Okay.
Be nice, actually, won't it, to turn up to that?
Yes, I can have a look at the planets for next year and hopefully bring you some good news.
Yeah, please give us some good news.
After the disaster of this year.
So Christine, is that you're an astrologer, aren't you? So
Yeah, I'm an astrologer. I work
bring in
with
your
planetary cycles. I'm also a coach, life coach, business coach, and I work with the flower essences as well. So kind of
brilliant.
around healing, using people's birth charts to help them connect with their authentic selves and to find out where they are in the planetary cycles. And this year certainly has been, as we all know, quite a tough one. There've been a lot of major planetary moves, and there's still quite a bit to come, so we'll see.
Amazing, that would be good.
Yeah.
Good to have on that evening. Thank you.
21st, okay, I'll put that in.
And then after Christmas, we'll be having Kay coming along. So Kay, do you want to tell people what you do? It's just good to have a little line up. And
well, very kind of you. I wear a lot of hats, as I think many people do. So I usually do an annual numerology reading for the year ahead. Obviously this year, or for the next year, I won't be doing this face to face, but I'm thinking of maybe putting a Zoom one together. I'm not quite sure about that yet. I've had a number of requests. And I usually combine it with my other great love. Interesting, because the numerology is very intuitive, but it does have a basis in left brain, because you do have to be able to count a bit, which is helpful. But then my other great love is sound therapy, and I play gongs and many other instruments. And then there are a number of other things I do. I'm a Reiki healer and teacher. I do spiritual philosophy. I have a group for that. Spiritual psychology. So unpicking what you do and how you are promoted to do stuff from a spiritual point of view using symbology. And I do things like life symbols and a few other things. So there's a bit of a menu, but I was thinking maybe whatever you, Suzanne, feel would work.
well, would you go with what you feel? We're happy to turn up and listen to any.
Well, I mean, obviously, if there's other people doing very similar things, then
I don't think there is. It's always going to be from a very personal perspective. Anyway.
Okay, in that case, leave it with me and let me sit with it for a bit, because it's a little bit kind of, I need to sit with that and decide what feels right and what to bring forward. But I would love to and feel very honoured to be asked, so thank you.
So all of you coming along to speak next, you're all very intuitive anyway, so you talk about what you feel comfortable talking about. We're just grateful that you're turning up and sharing your wisdom. So without further ado, I think that's a wrap. Thanks again, Gemma, for coming along. It's been really lovely to see you all here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just going to stay and chat to Karen for a second.
Okay.
That was lovely. Oh, so nice to see Gemma.
Yeah, that's really weird. When you said Gemma Williams, I didn't connect. That was Gemma.
Oh, was Gemma Taylor to you, is it?
I don't know. I just know it was Gemma. So when you said Gemma Williams, and the funny thing is, I don't think I even knew she did the Alexander technique. So I thought, oh, it's someone Suzanne knows. And then, of course, when I saw her, I was going, oh, that Gemma. So I realised who you meant. But I hadn't realised till then. So yeah, she's lovely. I love Gemma. She's great.
She is. I'm not right, let's just stop the recording.